Good morning, Samoa, and welcome to Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2, Episode 8, Under the Cloak of War, where today, apparently the Star Trek TOS Bridge Ambience video I've used for Strange New Worlds isn't on YouTube anymore. It's private. So I found this rather fitting medical bay exam TOS soundtrack that is going to put me to sleep even more than the bridge one of these days. Let's turn these down. But yes, before we get into the topic at hand today, that's what we'll call it. Last week, of course, we had a double billing with the Lower Deck Strange New Worlds crossover, meaning that my $40 price tag of the shipping of the uniform for the thumbnail, the live-action thumbnail, that joke I was going to do, it didn't actually matter. I just seen that when I clicked start recording this time, it didn't actually work. God dang it. But yes, I am live. And I said that between that week and that episode and the next episode, this one, the uniform should arrive and I do the thumbnail retroactively. It's a bit of a tonal jump I didn't anticipate. Some of you might already seen I've changed the video, but bam, I fulfilled my promise. There is the live action version of the thumbnails I always do, and I'll tell you what, it looks great in the playlist next to all the other animated me's, and there's just randomly one live action one. I like it. I'll tell you one other thing about these uniforms. I can't put my mouse on the thumbnail, but let's see, whoops, boop, and then boop. This collar bit right here that usually sticks up more, Una's not in a dress uniform. That's not good for my examples. There we go. This bit right here, these collars, you want to know why they always have them unzipped? Because that's extraordinarily uncomfortable having it zipped up. That it's an incredibly uncomfortable uniform, but when you zip it down, it's actually quite nice. It's a little warm, but oh well. Yeah, I know people want to see that. But now, I mean, we've all seen the episode, I'm assuming, but I'm gonna go, I feel like it deserves some kind of content warning in anyway this stream. Nothing that the episode didn't already discuss, I'm sure. But, yeah, I feel I should put that out there. I mean, I've been sitting here set up for about, like, 10 minutes, listening to Sick Bay ambiance, just kind of going, I don't know how this is gonna go. There's a reason that the intro wasn't subdued. It feels like it needs to be treated with some kind of respect. But also, I mean, again, I'm assuming you've seen this episode. There's scenes of this episode I didn't watch in the literal sense because I don't like watching surgery, we'll put it that way. And because of, like, YouTube guidelines in general, and that, I'm gonna try and avoid putting up those frames of, like, surgery and gore, basically things that YouTube would look at me funny if I tried to stream. But it's live, and I'm not gonna promise, well, I can't promise that I'm not gonna slip up at some point. So with that, here we go, here's a safe thumbnail. This shouldn't be as a surprise to anyone, given, well, a lot, but I've never been to war. This is a very hard one to review in general, because it covers a lot that I obviously don't have experience with, and we brush up against a problem in hypotheticals. This comes up with war a lot, where, you might be like, oh, if you could experience, if you'd been to war, you might change your mind. If you've had a kid, you might change your mind. When you get older, you might change your mind, you know, when you reach near the end of your life. It's like, yes, I might, but it's a really kind of awkward thing, because I might not think I will, or I might not know what happens, but it's hard to engage with those kind of arguments that are valid, because well, especially here, like, the only way to test it is for me to actually go to war, and for a multitude of reasons, that's not gonna happen. But still, let's try and do our... I mean, this... I'll tell you one thing right off the bat. I think this episode, I might actually be kind of on board with the prospect of Strange New Worlds going to war. Let's analyze it in the meta sense for a little bit. And let me get a new thumbnail. There's the concern. Or it's like, what? Go to war? Strange New Worlds has learned something that, by God, I didn't realize, but it's so obvious that Discovery should have known way back in the day. If you're gonna send the Federation to war, do something with it. Let's start at that. I liked this episode. Might not be the right word, but I think this was a great episode. Yes. It's the kind of episode you like in the same way you like not Half a Life, like the one where the doctor from Voyager gets a family and then like has to watch his holographic daughter die because he doesn't have the capability or the skills to cure her. It's that kind of like... Where was I going with this? But I mean, I think this episode did something that only Deep Space Nine has had the skill to do, and that's make a Star Trek at war work, where even if I have problems with how some of Starfleet is depicted, it's at least it has a very real feel to it. And if I have a complaint about this episode, it's that I wish we had more time to explore these topics. There were so many ideas and topics that all could deserve their own episode. I mean, that's basically what Deep Space Nine was. But I think it's a hard one as well, because this episode, I don't think it's trying to say... I have to be careful when I word this. It's definitely trying to say something, but I don't think it's trying to say, like, that any one thing is necessarily good or bad. I think it's trying to depict war as it is, how it can affect people, how you get from the civilians, or, like, even the quote-unquote military after peacetime, like just after a war, where there might be a mix of people who've never seen combat and then the people who've been through the whole war. But I think it's more a display of, all the different sides of war. There are a lot. I'm not gonna say there's all of them, but there are so many viewpoints on like what to do after war, what is war. There were so many great scenes, great ideas, because it's, even in the fictitious sense, it's an incredibly complicated topic. I mean, really coming to it, I think, at the end with M'Benga and... I should know his name, and we'll call him the... Even then, I want to call him the ambassador. We'll call him the ambassador, but that almost feels like picking a side. This might be a short review, especially if no one shows up. Just the idea of, like, I think he's genuinely... He's trying to do good in the world. I mean, I think that's clear. In his arguments of, like, yeah, I know I'm not a saint. I know I'm not even the saint that I'm claiming to be, but I can... This one lie can allow me to do so much good. And all these people who ultimately did something dubious, maybe to put it lightly, have that. I mean, it's there's so much you can explore from that. The idea of this one thing, I can do so much good. It's one of the reasons why you can have incredible saints of, like, politicians or world leaders, but, you still have to get to the top. I think Obama was a president, for example, who talked about a lot about like this, where he would struggle with his campaigns and like getting to the White House, where he could do so much once he got to the White House, but he had to get to the White House, to do any of that. This is an extremely different context, but I genuinely believe that the ambassador is like, yes, he in some way wants to atone. He either realizes what he did was wrong, he wants to make the world better, he wants to avoid it, or he needs forgiveness for himself. He needs to convince himself that, I don't know, it was worth it, that he's improved, like, but for whatever reason, I think he is genuinely trying to do good, and that, yeah, like, it... But I've also lost the point of that. It's, oh my god, it completely slipped my mind. Yeah, the idea of like, well, the people need saints. Like, nobody's a saint, but almost trying to shape, I don't know, make the universe as good as it could possibly be, not through any sort of moral or sense of what's right, what's wrong, but more like, this is what's going to happen. These are going to be the effects of my actions. I mean, even my own views that I'll probably get into a lot of this are largely based on, I mean, Pike is probably the closest to what I'd say of, well, what's the alternative? Like, let's go the other one. Let's even assume that, well, no, it's better is it set up that, like, this was a guy who committed horrible war crimes, horrific war crimes. He didn't actually have some sort of, like, epiphany where he murdered all of the, like, foot soldiers who actually carried out the atrocities. I'm looking for a good frame here. And I don't want to accidentally flash up surgery. Ooh, maybe not that one. This is a hard one. There we go. Like, does the general deserve to become an ambassador, to represent the Federation, to just kind of say, essentially, I mean, to put it in simplistic terms, you feel bad about what happened, therefore you're forgiven, kind of sense? I mean, my response is basically, how could you not? Like, with the Pike, how can you not give that forgiveness? Because what's the alternative? Do you just propagate that hatred? Do you propagate the bloodshed? I mean, it's hardly a original question, with it comes up in TNG when Worf is the only person who can save a Romulan because his blood's got some sort of, I don't know, ribosome or whatever that Romulan needs, and Worf goes, no, Romulans killed my family. And I mean, in brief, it's like, well, that's the alternative, and we can't have that. It's a bit different because some of these people specifically blame this ambassador, as opposed to like all Klingons are bad because of the Klingon War. But this is a tough one. Shall we just start at the beginning and start trying to go through the episode? I will bring one thing up. Oop, I'm flashing thumbnails up. That's risky. One bit of trivia up that you might not know. I did know he was in this episode beforehand, but I think I would have recognized him anyway. This guy is quite notable. Don't know the actor's name, but he was way back in the original series. He played Belloc, whose name I had literally just remembered, in like one of the first episodes, the Corbomite Maneuver. He played Belloc, the little alien guy, at the age of 6. He then went on, I don't think he shows up until Deep Space Nine, where he plays one of the residents of the Sanctuary District who stole Dax's badge and thinks that, like, Dax is an alien, which, to be fair, she was. He then appears in Discovery as an Orion on Kronos. I think he has another appearance, but I'm not remembering it. But he's one of the fun Star Trek actors who kind of bridges all the eras. I think he's in... Oh, that's right. He's in Enterprise's Ferengi episode as a Ferengi. I knew I missed one. So he kind of bridges all the eras in all the shows, which is nice. Shall we stop talking about things that are nice now? I mean, it's an interesting setup to deal with the Klingon War as well, where so many of the crew haven't dealt with the war. I do wonder about some, like Una seems uncomfortable about the situation, but she presumably would not have been in the war because she was off on Enterprise's 5-year mission during the Star Discovery. I know we're safe for a little bit. Yeah, this is the one where I think would be the philosophy I have the most problem with, where Ortega is, yeah, like literally blames... The reason Ortegas doesn't think the ambassadors are formed is because he's a Klingon. The reason Ortegas does not like the ambassadors because of his race. Let me put it even more bluntly. I like that. I think she kind of addressed that a bit. Like when her was calling out, she's like, yes, you're right. And then she kind of transitioned to, well, this Klingon in specifically is bad. I've just realized that all the things she was talking, well, not all of them, but like, you know, the whole butcher of Jarak. I don't remember. No, Jarak, that's an admiral. I don't remember the thing, but that's Mbanga, who she works with. It's got some Pale Moonlight vibes on this episode. But I do like kind of seeing these utopian, never seen war. Well, I mean, I guess Uhura went to the academy during the Klingon War. But, versus more the seasoned, like, army. I don't know if, the writing staff on Stranger Worlds has military experience. I know a lot of the big people in, like, the Berman era did, and even in TOS, like Gene Roddenberry did. There was some Vietnam. Like, there was military experience in there, which I think is why, you know, some things like Deep Space Nine worked very well. I would actually be very surprised to learn if there was not military experience in, like, represented somewhere in the writing of this episode. That would genuinely amaze me. But I get a lot of the same feelings of other episodes where veterans have gone and said, like, yes, I see so much of, like, the actual war and my experience in it, which is why I think I can confidently say it feels so real to something that I've never experienced. We're getting to risky territory now, so going over the thumbnails. I was gonna say, I think the ambassador, like, one of the big things in this episode is I think the ambassador could have been more understanding about, like, who he actually is. But I think I'm starting to realize what that is his views at the end, where he was talking about how the world needs a saint. Like, he needs to be some sort of ultra pacifist, nothing ever gets to me, kind of person, or at least that's what he thinks the universe needs. Because there are a lot of things we'll talk to, like, the people on the opposing side of what he supposedly believes are, like, horrific atrocities. And he's like, we're both victims, or, like, you need healing. There's a lot that's very condescending that, given his position, like, in the Federation, he definitely should know is going to garner that reaction. I don't know. I feel like it would be more saintly to actually show remorse. Like, he starts breaking out in tears or something. Is like, no, I understand. But, I mean, I think he's a consistent character. And I also think there's some narrative bits in there to try and make you, as the audience, try and wonder if this guy's actually reformed. You know, try and get you to feel some of the same doubt as the soldiers. But moving on. This is probably going to be a very quick one, especially if no one joins in the chat. It starts challenging some of what I'm saying. Yeah, now we're getting into the frames I can't show you. I don't know if I have too much to say about the actual flashback scenes on the planet. I mean, they did a good job, at least in my experience, of kind of depicting the war. It was a great backstory episode for Mbanga. A little less so for Chapel. They didn't show too much of why the two bonded, but I think we can clearly imply that they just spend a lot more time than we see on the planet here. Yeah, these were a lot of these scenes I didn't actually watch because I don't want to watch surgery. I did get kind of nauseous watching some of these. The one of the bits that really struck me, I think it's a later scene. Yes, I know you're not seeing what I'm seeing now for good reason. Is when Chapel had to manually pump the heart, and I think the lower deck scene of "Are you kidding? I got to hold a heart" is gonna be different. Like I kept thinking about that scene of like just how different it. Like this. God, this was the reviewer's nightmare, is if I had actually watched these in advance, I might have canceled this review, because I don't even know where to begin with. I don't have the answer. Like, let's skip ahead to some of the key scenes I want to talk about. Maybe one thing that did bother me is like how much Chapel and Mbanga especially, but also Ortega's, who, as is tradition, is totally sidelined, and we don't really learn any of her feelings or motivations. But it kind of bothers me that they're all like, no, the captain needs us today. It's like, bullshit. The captain literally walked in here and is basically like, I understand that not only do you maybe not need to be there for your own mental health, which you should understand because you're a 23rd century doctor, but also you might cause a scene at the dinner, which ends up happening with someone else. You can sit this out if you want for the betterment of the Federation, and then he brings up the dinner afterwards. Like, no, the captain absolutely does not need you. Like, that did bother me. But, maybe you could argue they're going into sort of quote-unquote soldier mode. Like well, I don't know, those are the orders. Or like, our captain needs us, our nation needs us, whatever, so we're gonna do whatever we have to. There's so much I want to talk about. I'm trying to figure out the order. But, I mean, I don't like that either. It might be real. I'm going to skip ahead to something else right after this, but it might be real, but I've never seen an army, real or fictitious, that I've been like, yes, this philosophy, this way of thinking is clearly a good way of thinking that is going to make the world a better place. I have never seen that. I have only seen ones that lead to all of the most problematic viewpoints in this viewpoint of like, I hate the ambassador because of his race as a Klingon. That sort of don't question orders are orders kind of viewpoint. I'm going to skip ahead to the scene that has really been holding me back here. This might have been my favorite scene, is the one where Una comes to Pike and is basically like, here's an advanced course. We need this guy off our ship. Because that, I think, was the biggest one as the audience. Because the whole question kind of here is, yeah, how can we claim to be this utopian, all-accepting federation if we don't give these people a second chance? It's what I was saying, like, essentially my philosophy of what's the alternative? Like, how can you not offer that forgiveness, give them a chance? And I'm not saying, the evil dictator walks up and is like, hey, I've reformed, can I be an ambassador now? You shouldn't just go like, great, all your crimes are forgiven, show up 9 to 5 on Monday. Like, no, that's ridiculous. You need to earn the trust back. You don't just start up with this you don't just become the high-ranking ambassador, but I'm going to make assumptions that, he had those chances and proved himself and worked his way up to the position he's in. But I liked Una's the best, because I also don't think that, as I just said, you shouldn't drag, like, Chapel and Mbanga right up to the dinner and be like, no, I'm putting my foot down, you're going to accept the Klingon. Because aside from, like, the practical, like, problems with that, that's probably not going to actually help lead to a more accepting society. I don't know how you might go about that, but that's definitely not going to be the way you do it. And Una's line was the one that really convinced me, is like, regardless of, like, the big picture, yeah, a lot of these crew are healing in their own way, and this is not helping. There might be middle grounds, like, okay, all the crew who we've established shouldn't be much of the crew. Like, you can be relieved of duty, you can go sit in your quarters all day or whatever. But I love the most that Pike was just like, all right, I've heard enough, change course. I love, especially in this season, how reasonable Pike is. Like, he's definitely has his views. I think they're not as strong as, say, maybe Picard, but he definitely has got, like, a solid moral viewpoint. But he's also like, right, yep, he's willing to hear and accept evidence and be like, yep, you're right, I hadn't considered, moving on. It reminds me of, I like the scene in TNG where Troy's, like, pregnant with some mysterious baby. She just wakes up one day pregnant, and they have the meeting to talk about, well, what do we do about Troy's baby? And at one point, she just interrupts, like, Captain, do whatever you need to keep the ship safe, but I'm having this baby. And then the captain's like, well, okay, that's it. Meeting adjourned. We have nothing more to talk about. I'm really liking Pike a lot more in this season. He's only destroyed, like, one civilization, I think. And quite frankly, that's just astounding. Going back to where we were in our little watch through. Yeah, I'll say I actually think I liked Spock quite a bit in this episode. He felt post-Boimler more Spock. I don't know. Like, this was Spock trying to look after someone. I'll say, I don't say this a lot, but I quite liked Spock's performance. He seemed to have less of the emotion in his voice, which I think is been one of my biggest problems with Ethan Peck Spock, because Spock did have emotion. You just sure as hell couldn't tell. But Ethan Peck Spock always sounds like on the verge of an emotional breakdown or, like, outburst, except this episode. Mathman, actually, I'm sorry, you can see this frame. Mathman, getting really tired of them using the transporter trick trope. It should have been a one and done with Scotty did in TNG. Agreed, especially in the prequel, and Mbanga just casually invented a way to keep someone forever. It's getting worse. I think it's been before, but we'll just focus Strange New Worlds, and Mbanga was like, you can hold someone in a pattern buffer as long as you materialize them every now and then. Which, like, technically is true. It's just in this era, you sure as hell couldn't maintain someone in a pattern buffer for, like, most of the day, which I think Mbanga was doing once a day. In, like, 100 years, what happens is, like, they're beaming someone, and it's, like, seconds before they're just gone forever. It's seconds. And in this one, they were just like, nope, you can literally store them on the hard drive, which I might point out, I believe it was 5 people took literally all the storage space on Deep Space Nine. Literally all of it. But no, you can just do that, like, in a mobile medical wartime hospital transporter. You can just store a person forever. Yeah, the transporters are already magic machines, but, yeah, if you're ever, like, have a transporter and are too far away from medical help, I mean, and the biggest problem is, like, if they want to do that, they can. I mean, it'd be harder to tell stories, but you can... I mean, now just make the transporter go out. We have this problem already. But, yeah, it's the prequel. So now, why have we never done this? Does Mbanga just not tell anyone about his magic transporter tricks and no one else brings it up? That honestly might be more egregious than the time Voyager kept, like, an entire colony in its transporter buffer for, like... No, sorry, not that one. The time Voyager beamed an entire ship of Klingons were like, yeah, we can do this. It's just kind of dangerous, so we don't do it, ever. Carlos, hello. The abuse of the one-trick pony from SH is getting very old. SH. SSS. Spock? No. S. Starfleet headquarters? It's not straight. Oh, secret hideout. There we go. Thank you. I mean, to be fair, I think it's a slightly different trick every time. It's just, I think we've been over it. I mean, this era has never done technology great. I don't think I have many problems with Strange New Worlds, and the problems I do have, it inherited from Discovery. But, oh well. I don't want to focus too much on those sort of things. Secret hideout. Yep, I got it. Going on. I do find it a bit weird that potion, for lack of a better word, that Mbanga and Chapel were injecting themselves with was just like adrenaline and pain killers that I guess made them expert level fighters. It felt a bit underwhelming, like, oh, is that it? I mean, yeah, it would do something, but is that it? That one felt a little bit underwhelming, I'll admit, but I guess any kind of solution would probably have been underwhelming. Moving on, I don't think we're going to see anything YouTube would object to for a little bit. Another one, I think it was kind of weird for Spock to change the subject from all the peace that Klingon has been bringing about to make Chapel feel better. He brought up the ambassador's views on war, which was an interesting choice, but I mean, this is Spock we're talking about. He's not exactly the most emotionally intelligent. I don't think... Oop, and now I gotta hide this. I don't think I really have too much to say on... It's a hard one to review. It talks about so much that's hard to relate to and so complicated, and I'm also having to just pull it back from memory. Yeah, going through again. We'll go back to this. Yeah, and like the ambassador was just really quick to try and bring Mbanga on board. Almost very emotionally deaf on like what he's going through. It just felt weird. I mean, you could say maybe he's so either passionate or focused on his goal of trying to make the world better now or trying to do good that he's kind of blinded to all of that, or he's like, well, I've only got so much time or else it's never going to happen. I set up after this episode, like, how the hell am I going to review that? I'm not even sure if the buffer time people are doing the review this week. They're like, I don't know. I did that scene. God, I think the ending now. Yeah, that's the one where I really set up, like, good lord, what am I even supposed to say? I thought that, like, I thought this was going to be the big thing, and I actually realized, so this, like, maybe this is why we know at some point Mbanga seems to fall out of favor as Starfleet, because he's no longer the chief medical officer of the Enterprise, but he still serves on the Enterprise, so he wasn't promoted. He seems to have gotten a demotion for something. I thought this was going to be it. If not his demotion, because Strange New Worlds needs him. You know, this was going to be like a big turning point for Mbanga, but God, what do I even say about this? I mean, I can't even necessarily call them wrong. Oh, Buffer Time is on a break to the writer's strike. I did not see that. I thought I saw them debating whether we were going to do an episode or not. But, what am I? Let's take an aside and address that writer's strike, as it's been brought up. That, yeah, I'm on the side of the writers. I'm on the side of the actors. I mean, of course, I am. Is it wrong to do these reviews with essentially to prop up and promote Paramount during the strike? I don't think it's wrong to do these reviews. I also think that the consensus of the majority of the people who work on these things is that they don't have a problem with people engaging with the shows they have written, the shows they have acted in, the shows they have performed. But we just can't continue. We just can't keep making them because there's a strike on, because there's serious things that need to be addressed. Like, the entire industry right now is completely broken. In both the sense that it is simply the streaming model doesn't work, and the people who make this stuff can't really survive off of it, other than at the highest of levels, the highest of, like, acting, directing, whatever. And they're all at risk of being completely replaced by AI. Will I keep my subscription to Paramount Plus after Strange New Worlds? I have not decided yet, because I also want Paramount to continue. I mean, the purpose of the strike isn't to cause the companies to literally cease to exist, but also that is giving money to something that is so immorally wrong. The affected people are literally on strike. That's a bridge we'll get to. But yes, I think that is good to address. But also, if you want to boycott, stop giving money to these, I understand. But I think as well, if the strikers were like, please stop reviewing this content, then I probably would. But you know what? We might pivot. I think I might not do Star Trek in the break between Stranger Worlds and Lower Decks. I might pivot over and maybe try some, like, Doctor Who watch-alongs, maybe do something else. I think that's what I'll do. But for the new stuff, I will stick around with the reviews. Plain Simple Taylor, I don't think so, but enough others think we shouldn't do new episode reviews, but at some point we're going to do Real Bread. Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm not gonna fight someone and be like, no, you should review. But, I just think from what I've heard about what the strikers think, I don't have any conniptions, about doing this. Cause I think everyone, at least at, like, this Star Trek level, wants Paramount to continue and continue making Star Trek. If Paramount refuses to continue under the demands, well, that's Paramount's fault. I don't want Star Trek to continue amorally. But, yeah. Mathman, I see reviews on currently finished stuff as opposed to hard work of the actors, writers, producers, etc. Oh yeah, and don't forget, we also got to engage with Prodigy to bring that back. Prodigy is getting plenty of engagement. I think it is in the top 2%, 3% of, like, shows right now, in demand shows. But, yeah. I think it's fine to keep doing reviews. Lower Decks, completely fine doing reviews. Paramount has under 2 years of operation standing. If they don't grow their fan base to please their shareholders. Yes, that is why. We'll see. I hope they can make it work, but that's in the future. Also, unsurprisingly, everybody who has come to my review is perfectly happy doing reviews. What a what a shocker. Getting back to this topic at hand. God. I mean, I think they probably did a net negative to the world. Um, I think, like, the Klingon guy was right in that that image of sort of the saint, the reformed Klingon, was doing good. Even if it wasn't actively doing good, the revelation that the Saint Reformed Klingon had actually never changed and had attempted to murder an innocent Federation doctor, escorting him home from a peace talk, like, that could destroy a peace talk. That will do bad to the world. That's a pragmatic way of looking at it. That's kind of the view of, well, what other choice do we have, like, other than to accept the ambassador, provided he's actually, doing the good he's saying that he's doing. I think they did it. I'm going to call it vengeance. They're going to call it justice. You can debate whether they're the same thing or not all the time. I've never liked that argument. I never subscribed to don't the victims deserve, call it what you want, justice, revenge, vindication, satisfaction, peace of mind. To a point. But to my always thinking is, if I was one of those people, no. Like, that's not what I wouldn't want. I live in a country that has the death penalty. And you might go, well, yes, it's very easy to say this now in a hypothetical. Let me point you back to the beginning of the stream where I talked about I can't really defend against that. But, if I had a family member, if Alex was murdered, if someone was murdered, then I hope I would still go up to, like, the governor, whoever, the courts, whatever, and be like, do not give this person the death penalty. Because no, I wouldn't want that. In the broader sense, there are other episodes of Star Trek even, and of course in the real world. Do we use medical knowledge that was gained under horrific experience from, like, the Nazis, say, or other people? Do we gain it from atrocity? In Star Trek, it was a Cardassian scientist who'd experimented on Bajorans. And one of the prevailing arguments against it is, not the only argument by you, but the one I'm going to focus on, and the only one I'm going to consider, is that it would be an insult to the victims to use that knowledge. I'm like, now, I'm sure definitely some people would consider that. Like, some victims would think that, and I have absolutely no evidence to what the majority might think. But I'm like, good lord, what a spit in my face I would think of that as. Like, if I was one of the victims and I had been unimaginably tortured, violated, just whatever unimaginable Nazi experiments we're thinking about, surely at the if that's already happened, at least make something come out of it, would kind of be my viewpoint on that. And so the idea of, like, the sort of victim satisfaction, I don't subscribe to it. There's definitely a point. Like, as I said, we shouldn't just be like, okay, this Klingon says he's reformed, bam, you're now our highest ranking general. Like, no, I'm not saying some sort of complete abstinence of punishment or anything like that. But to the extreme of, this is genuinely a war criminal who is reformed and realized the error of their ways, and is now actively going about to make the world a better place. No, I don't think that the victims... I think if the victims want some sort of punishment, or, at the worst, if we're being nice, some sort of justice, some sort of punishment on the victim, and if we're being mad, some sort of justification, some sort of vindication, then that is morally wrong. I'd even take the stance that if my viewpoint were to change in one of those things, like someone I knew was murdered and my viewpoint changed, I would be in the moral wrong. It might happen. Again, the only way to test that is to murder somebody I love, and that's not gonna happen. At least not for the sake of a test. Like, yeah. But, I mean, I was just amazed for the most part. Like, I don't even know where to begin. I've seen comments. David C. Peck Spock was very on point this episode. He did a good job. Yes, I said that earlier. I mean, I don't think it was anything to write home about, but there are scenes I'm like, actually, this does feel a lot more like the Spock I would know. And I'd like to pretend that that's some sort of post-Boimler. They've actively changed how they've written Spock. I don't believe that for a second, but I agree. I thought he felt pretty Spock in this episode. The scene at the end as well. Like, I don't think M'Benga lied to Pike, at least in the sense that he was trying to see. I think M'Benga genuinely believes. He's like, I did not start the fight, Captain. He did when he declared war on the Federation, when he gave the order at whatever the planet was. Like, he didn't. I think he believes that. Like, it was the very on point answer of, like, I feel if something happened and, like, it got out of control, you would tell me. And his response is I didn't start the fight. It's implying an answer without giving one. Carlos, I will give this episode a decent rating. This writing was much better than all of the previous airings of Stranger Worlds. I don't know. Per aspa. Like, they've got on par. But I mean, it's more, look at it. It's more character work. This is also something of a philosophical exploration. More in that it's presenting a lot of different viewpoints and doing it well. But that's what Stranger Worlds can do. And I mean, if Stranger Worlds wants to jump straight into, like, late Deep Space Nine stuff, if we're really going to get some sort of Gorn war, I mean, it's basically, let's do I would pick a different villain. I'll tell you that right off. I fundamentally disagree with what they've done with the Gorn. But, actually, I've said before, even in Season 1, I can also see what they're doing is set up for essentially a Gorn redemption. Like, hey, the Gorn are people too. They're not the ruthless animals that we've made them to be. And I say that literally. They want to write it as that the audience sees them as, but no, they have made them absolutely raving animals. But I genuinely, this is bad for review. I don't know what to say. Like, it was just shocking. Like, there was so much. If I was doing a different kind of review, I generally could probably listen to this scene and unpack it, like, line for line. That's more a watch-along thing. So, if you want to subscribe in, like, 10, 20 years when we get back around to modern Star Trek in our watch-through, sure, we can talk about that. But, Plain Simple Taylor, the only thing I don't like in this episode is the new class of the Kelsey May, I believe. Otherwise, there's nothing to not like about this episode. Great backstory, only a few likes. 7.5 out of 10 for me. Where is that ship? Oh my god, where is that ship? It's like right at the beginning. It's really straightforward, and you don't have to spend 2 hours on every episode. Alright, don't call me out. I never planned to spend 2 hours on every episode. Yeah, Federation starship design and me, by and large, diverged a very long time ago. I've said before, I've considered basically making a video, most Starfleet starships are bad. I'm not even sure if I believe in that claim, but the title alone, like, God, I don't think that would go over well. Is that a 1 nacelle? I did not realize that was a 1 nacelle. Is it, so it goes through the middle? Yeah, Starfleet Design and I had a bit of a divorce a while ago. The 32nd Century is good. I think I like kind of what's going on here. I think you've got something going on here. You could tie it into, like, maybe it's a more Vulcan-inspired design. It's very weird to say it doesn't feel very TOS because there was literally one ship in TOS. But it... Well, let me just say this. After the Berman era, they've kind of... The people have been rather unshackled in what they can do with Federation design, and I don't think that has always been for the better. Discovery, I think, managed to nail it in the 32nd century. Actually, even in the 23rd century, I think the timelines are a bit squished. It's a bit too close to TOS, but as sort of a midpoint between Enterprise and TOS, I actually think they've done pretty good, having held a lot of the models in my hand. The other ones, yeah, that's not it. You've got stuff going on here, but this and this, that's just too much for me. That's just weird. It's like a pre-Vulcan ship. Yeah, I mean, you have something in the nose. I mean, we've got Dauntless, we've got Prometheus, you've got things that have pulled this off. Let me just position myself to where the mic is blocking the back. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that could work. It's just... You know, I think there's a reason we shouldn't diverge too far when it comes into cells and deflectors. I don't know what makes a perfect Starfleet design, but I do know when it doesn't quite work for me. Oh, by the way, this isn't a diss on modern Star Trek solely. Like, no, a lot of the background, like, TNG fleet and stuff is just not... I don't think it's that great. It's kind of weird, the kit bashes, but, yeah. Even if Mbenga didn't know much about Klingon anatomy from the stab, he's such a transporter genius that he could just preserve his pattern. He definitely killed him with vengeance. Oh, yeah. I mean, before seeing that they were gonna lie about what happened... Actually, hell, even after, I'm surprised this didn't come up. What Chapel does is walk up to them, and they just stare at him. Like, they are in sickbay. I have no doubt that, well, okay, they might have been able to, like, I guess maybe they could have killed him in one stab. We've seen Klingons die in one stab before, all right. But I'm sure they could have done something if they, tried. But they didn't. They didn't even try. That's probably gonna come up, I'm actually amazed that didn't come up. I mean, there's gonna be an inquiry, but maybe they could just say, oh, it was shock, whatever. They didn't, I don't know. But, yeah, they did not, they were like, Chapel's like, well, shit, what do we do now? Not even then. Chapel's like, well, okay, I've got to lie about this. Yeah. No Vulcan ship either. They have circular warp nacelles for several hundred years. It's a Federation ship, meaning it is a Vulcan ship. The one that I was thinking of was the Discovery, cruiser. I think I've got a review of it. Hang on. Yeah, I can get a picture of that up. Yeah, it reminded me of the Discovery Vulcan Cruiser. My channel, playlists. Oh, look at that. I'm live right now. Who would have thunk? Discovery Collection. There we go. Not this one. This one down here. It reminded me of this kind of nose shape. But yeah, I feel like I haven't even really talked about this episode. There was so much. It was very well done. But it's also heavy. We don't usually do heavy around here. It's a very hard one. It's the sort of thing that, like, moment by moment, I could probably talk a lot about. That's just not what we do, and if we did it, we'd be here for 5 hours. If no one has anything else, I might even just kind of start wrapping it up. Yeah, I really liked it. In that kind of sense of, I thought it was quality. There we go. I thought it was quality. That's what we're gonna go with. I like how many different viewpoints it kind of explored. I liked for the subject, it didn't really try and say one was right, one was more. It recognized that it's dealing with an incredibly complicated subject that probably doesn't have just a right answer. Certainly not at like the big scale that you can apply to everything. I mean, yeah, it was very much like a lot of those good late Deep Space Nine episodes where I liked the exploration of the topic, the way it made you think, the way it made things seem real, the way it made you question. I mean, there's a major war going on in the world right now, but it is also very far away from me in the sense that it's not going to make any sort of depiction of war feel more real. It in the sense of, you know, like if you were actually in Ukraine, Russia, in Western Europe, or, you know, just in a conflict, you were in the military, you can see it in front of you. I mean, no, it might as well not be happening in how real it would make it. But I can't remember the point of that comment. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's good to think about these sort of things. Like, otherwise you kind of know what to do, know how to try and keep the world a good place if a war were to ever break out that you'd be involved in. You know, I mean, it's individuals who wage war, ultimately, even at, like, you know, Russia and Ukraine aren't at war right now. It's like Russian leaders, Ukrainian leaders, Russian generals, Ukrainian generals, like people who are doing that, soldiers who are doing all of that. And even just going away from how, I don't know, the sort of oxymoron of a just war, a good war, the war that minimizes damages. Like, afterwards, how do you deal with, you know, the people coming home from war that would be changed? How do you try and embrace peace, but let kind of those people go through whatever they're going through? What did Una say? Like, get peace their own way. Or even just how war can affect us. Like, is a deterrent. Like, I don't know. Again, it's stuff I'm so far removed away from that makes it hard to say. But I think I probably will wrap it up there. Hey, we crossed the hour mark. Look at that. A note thing, it's another shorter one, which was interesting. 40, well, a little more than that. There we go, 48 minutes, which it's not long. For something that had so much to talk about, I was kind of going through, like, man, I feel they could have done more with this. I don't necessarily feel like anything was missing. They just could have spent a lot of time on a lot more of the topics if they wanted. But we're at least going to have some sort of Gorn face-off, even if it's one episode. This gives me more faith that there'll at least be something to enjoy. I think any Gorn conflict in Stranger Worlds, I am going to... It's going to be seriously detracted from because of what they've done with the Gorn, and I could not fundamentally disagree with it more. The only episode of Star Trek I have never finished is one of Strange New Worlds Gorn episodes, in large part because of what they've done with the Gorn. Star Trek memory... Oh, I'm dumb. I was looking up... Tonal shifts! My god, I was looking up what the next episode was gonna be. It's Subspace Rhapsody. I saw this brought up in a Star Trek Strange New Worlds season should be longer. I mean, in general, it should be longer, like 14, 15. Last episode, we had a pretty fan-servicey Lower Decks crossover, like, nice fun. You know, there were some big character moments, but I don't think anything too, like, dark. You know, it was kind of a fun comedy crossover. This episode the horrors of war and how war can change someone. And, can a war criminal be redeemed? What is right? What is wrong? Is the universe just a pure shade of gray? Can there be no utopia, no peace, no salvation? Will hatred endure forever from generations of blood feuds, mistrust, and racism? Next week, musical. Yeah, we could use a little bit of a gap between Under the Cloak of War and Subspace Rhapsody. If you have not seen the trailer for Subspace Rhapsody, yeah, we're doing the musical episode that they've wanted to do, I think, since Discovery Season 1. It was going to be a short trek. For one, I don't care if it's good or bad. I am here to embrace the experiment of Subspace Rhapsody. I'm a little concerned because I didn't understand a single word that was sung in the trailer. I might go into it with subtitles on. It wasn't modern, so, a lot of the cast actually apparently has, roots in Broadway. I think Ahura's actress and Chapel both started in Broadway. But yeah, in a absolute massive tonal shift. I'm all down for Subspace Rhapsody. I almost want to do a custom thumbnail for it if I had the budget to pay Alex. Or the time. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting. And then, episode 10, more horrors of war, is it gonna be? Subspace Rhapsody, good lord. I'll tell you what, one way or another, Subspace Rhapsody is gonna be an episode that goes down in history. Thank you, David C., for the $20. You might have brought us out of the red again this month. I didn't know Mass Replicas was gonna charge $70. Ignoring that trailer, it's a fun one. But mostly it's just to announce it's a musical. David C., the producers claimed the ending was intentionally ambiguous, but it didn't seem ambiguous to me. Pretty sure he murdered the Klingon. What is ambiguous about it? I think maybe they mean... Oh, I see, we didn't actually see the stab. No, okay. I guess there is ambiguity, who actually started that fight. I'd have to... You know what? I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to listen to that dialogue again. Because I think I did miss that. Give me a moment. I'm going to get to... You can't hear it. Actually, you know what? No, for copyright. You can't hear it, but I'm going to listen real quick. 10 seconds, 10 seconds... So yeah, the ambassador touches M'Benga. Yeah, no, it is super ambiguous, the lines. It's the Klingon puts his hand on M'Benga's shoulder, and he's like, please don't be stubborn. M'Benga's like, I said leave me alone. The camera doesn't watch it. The Klingon's like, please don't be stubborn, and then we hear the shoves. So... yeah, it is ambiguous who actually started that original fight. M'Benga stabbed the Klingon, I'm sure. I can't see how the Klingon could have gotten the knife, stabbed himself in the chest. And if that is what happened, they probably would have told the truth. But I think that's what they're referring to. But I could also see interpretations that this conversation at the end between Pike and M'Benga is double meaning. Pike is talking about, the incident that just happened with the ambassador. M'Benga is talking about the broad scope of the war. Pike is talking about the fight that just broke out in Sikway, and M'Benga is talking about the Federation Klingon War. But yeah, there's an ambiguity in who started the fight, but I think that's almost irrelevant here. This is about the bigger picture. This isn't a question about that one fight, and so yeah, I don't think there's really any... It's ambiguous, but it's irrelevant, almost, in terms of who actually started that. But yeah, after that heavy discussion, it's time to prepare for Subspace Rhapsody, I'll have to write musical lyrics. If I actually prepared and didn't watch these episodes like 10 minutes before the live stream, I genuinely might write up a musical review of Subspace Rhapsody. God, that's a massive tonal shift, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting, and I think that is a guarantee of the universe. Subspace Rhapsody is going to be interesting. It sure as hell is not going to be boring. It's you know what Subspace Rhapsody is? It's modern Star Trek's equivalent of the baseball episode. People talk about, there's this, especially if it's going to be sandwiched between Under the Cloak of War and Gorn Conflict. Like, it's always, even Deep Space Nine sometimes had to co-play baseball. Like, Strange New Worlds just has to go have a sing-along, It's baffling, though, that those two episodes were put next to each other. Yeah, to even get a trailer for Subspace Rhapsody at the end of this, I am kind of curious. Oh, we didn't. But, yeah, without further ado then, I am going to wrap things up. I'm going to ramble a little bit just in case someone wants to post a comment. I need another drink. And then I am probably going to listen to some audio dramas, because why not? There you go, you've caught up with me. I see the thumbnail in my playback. Let's just look again at that lovely live-action thumbnail. It looks so good in the playlist list. I like it. If you want, by the way, that uniform, got it from a company called Cosicon, Cosicon, I think. Cosicon, Starfleet Stranger Worlds uniform. The badge is different. I got that on eBay in a set for a lot of money. Well, actually not that much money, but real good. I genuinely don't remember who made them. Just Google around. It was like a Q company something that made them for Discovery. But it's even got the little like engineering insignias on the sleeves. You can get them in any color. No ranks, but the yellow shirt has some ranks. It really bothers me there weren't any ranks. You can get those on. But yeah, if that was interesting. They've got a mix, it looks like, of high quality and low quality ones. But yeah, that was a pretty good uniform that reasonably priced as well, I think. And of course they've got the, I don't even think you can call it the male version anymore, but the shirts. But yeah, I think then I will call it here. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time for a musical. I was going to say sing-along, but no, I suppose